Hello, everyone, and welcome to Picture the Scene podcast, hosted by me, Andrew.
And me, Rachel.
Please note today's topic could find elements that some listeners could find disturbing, so listener caution is advised. So, how's it going today, Rach? Are you ready for some true crime?
I am, and I'd just like to say congratulations to Picture the Scene on their 5th episode. How exciting! It's mega.
Yes, you're going to have to start getting used to saying hour, but yes.
I know. That I just said because I felt like then the spotlight wasn't on me, and it is all your work. But yeah,
It's
big
our
big
work.
milestone. I feel.
Yes, it is good. And I was thinking about that's 2.5 months so far already, and unless my maths is terrible, but it's around 2 months anyway. It's not bad.
No, absolutely. And it's flown by. It'll be Christmas before we know it, and we'll be putting some sort of blood and gore on a Christmas story in no time.
No doubt, yes, no doubt. So today's is a bit of a mystery, so it should be interesting. I thought it was interesting. But before we get on today's episode, I want to give a shout out to those of you who reached out after the last episode to give feedback. It really does make our day when someone does that. So please do carry on doing that. If you'd like to let us know what you think, we can be found on all the usual social media platforms. We're at ScenePod on Instagram and Twitter. That's at SCENEPOD. Or you can find us on Facebook by searching for Picture the Scene podcast. And I've not put this in the scripts, but if you heard me talking about discussion group, it is disappeared into the Facebook ether, maybe into the meta, so I don't know where it's gone. So don't try and find that because I can't even find it myself now. So if it's safe for you to do so, I'd like all of you listening to relax, close your eyes, and picture the scene. Today we're going to take you back to 1994, Saturday, April the 30th to be exact, in a small town of Woking, which is in the county of Surrey in the UK. It was a little after 9 p.m, 9:15 to be exact, and the temperature had dropped 3 degrees Celsius, or 5 degrees Fahrenheit, from 16 degrees Celsius to 13, or 60 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit from the previous hour. So a little bit of a drop, and the wind had also picked up from an average of 19 kilometers an hour to 22 kilometers an hour in the same time, making it the windiest part of the day. And this is probably explained because the sun had only just set 50 minutes previously. So what was a bright, sunny spring day had turned into night, but with winter starting to become a distant memory, you'd probably find yourself accepting the cold as you know the warmth is on its way. And if you combine this with the fact the clocks had only gone forward a few weeks earlier, it wouldn't seem as late to you. So I know you said previously, Rachel, that pizza and wine are a staple of yours when it comes to the weekend.
Yep.
And to many people it's the same. It's an easy food to eat while you're enjoying the company of others, and it's a treat for many at the end of the week too. But unfortunately, like many things in life, when people want to commit a crime, they'll disguise their motives in many ways. And today's crime will use pizza as a form of camouflage. Now, I'll let you know soon what I mean by that, but what I don't mean is that we don't have a person or persons dressed as giant pizza committing crime. Unfortunately, because that would be quite cool.
Thanks for clarifying that. Really appreciate the disclaimer. But I just wanted to add here that strangely, my eldest brother lived in Woking in the mid 90s, not 94. Definitely wasn't the murderer because he was still at university. But he lived in a village of Woking for a little while and then moved to a place called Godalming, which isn't too far away, but beautiful little countryside. And I was really intrigued that a murder had taken place here because it's so like quaint and picturesque. I remember visiting him often when I was very young. So yeah, very surprised about a murder in the village.
I know, and especially, well, to all you listening, yes, we are going to talk about murder today, but
I'm sorry.
it's okay, but yes, for all you listening, it's quite a strange one as well, isn't it? So not only is it a nice little place, it's quite an unusual crime.
What more could you want for a Saturday night?
Exactly.
A pizza and a bit of murder.
Why? Yes, exactly. So don't make me laugh, Rachel. Let me introduce you to Karen Reid. Karen was a 33-year-old woman who at the time had a sister living with her, and she was single. She was reported to be kind, gentle, loving, and very intelligent, who didn't have any enemies in her life. She was a geophysicist who analysed seismic data for a living, so she wasn't in the type of job you'd expect that could cause confrontations or unhappy people. And as mentioned, as we just heard from Rachel, she lived in Woking in a semi-detached house on a Barnsbury estate that comprised of flats, masonettes. Masonette is a duplex to our American listeners, and houses. Private and social housing were mixed together on the established estate, and Karen's house overlooked a field on the edge of the estate and was a corner house. It was a relatively quiet area at the time, and it wasn't anything unique. There's hundreds of estates around the UK very similar to this one. So on that Saturday evening in April, she was enjoying the company of a good friend over a few glasses of wine, and while I'm taking a wild guess here, I can only assume she was doing what most people do in that situation, especially before the internet. She was enjoying conversation with a friend and talking about each other's lives and what was happening in their own particular bits of the world. So it's 9:15 on Saturday, the 30th of April, and Karen was with her friend drinking white wine, enjoying each other's company, and it was at 31 Willoway in Woking when the doorbell rang. So, as you would do so, and Karen did also, she got up and answered the door. When she answered the door, her door was on the side of her house, and in front of it was a concreted driveway, and the road would have been in easy sight. When answering the door, she would have seen a pizza delivery guy. He was tall, dark-haired, wore glasses, and was holding a blue and white pizza delivery box. And we have a sketch of him. I'll pop it up on our various social media channels. Now, Karen did what we all would do if a food delivery person turned up on your door and you hadn't ordered anything. She politely told him that she hadn't ordered anything, so he then, again a very typical thing here, he then asked her to confirm her address. And she did, 31 Willoway. And as soon as she did, it was bam, he shot her 5 times in the head. Now, an ambulance was called, but sadly, but not unsurprisingly, she was declared dead on the scene. So why did she die? She was a quiet, well-loved and caring, good person. Why would she be executed on her doorstep? Could it be a random killing? Do you think it is a random killing?
I mean, it seems pretty random, but can I just say, like who wouldn't just take a pizza that is delivered to their doorstep on a Saturday night, especially if they've had a couple of glasses of wine? I know it could be my neighbours, but I'm going to have it because I'm hungry. And there's a tall, dark-haired guy delivering pizza to my doorstep. Yes, please. Thank you. Bye.
I know it does sound like a mid-90s porn film as well, doesn't it? Well, you probably don't know it, yeah. But it does, yeah. I was a teenager in the mid-90s, forgive me. Now, where am I? As rarely are, random doorstep killings do happen. But on this occasion, I think we can firmly say that this killing was not random, that it was calculated and planned. But why can we say this? Well, to start with, the killer was in disguise as a pizza delivery man, but it does go further than that. 2 weeks earlier to the shooting, the police believe the killer was on his way to kill that day. They think this because 2 weeks earlier, the police spotted a car acting suspiciously in the Woking area, so they pursued it. Now, the car they spotted was a red Vauxhall Cavalier, and during the pursuit, the driver of the Cavalier abandoned the car and ran off. I'm just going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. When I was writing this, I wrote this because the police said they saw a car acting suspiciously. How exactly does a car act suspiciously? Does it like hide behind trees when it sees the police or something? That's all I had in my mind. How does a car act suspiciously? I'm sure there is a way. But yes.
No, that will tickle me for the remainder of the evening.
Good. Right. When the police officers who had followed the car examined it afterwards, they found a black bag, a large-handled commando-style knife in a black leather sheath, and quite a rare Orney blue tartan cap, an automatic pistol with silencer, and tellingly a map that was marked with the Barnsbury estate. Now, that would indicate to me anyway that the killer wasn't local, and we'll touch on that later. that would indicate that the killer wasn't local, and we'll touch on that later, but also was in fact targeting Karen or her household, because why else would you have a map and a gun and a silencer?
So I'm just gonna go off on a brief tangent here. I'm not sure. Have you seen the Bamba murders on Sky?
No.
Have you heard about the
Yeah, I
Bamba?
know
Yeah.
there's a group of people think he did it, and there's a group of people think his sister did it, but I
Oh
don't know a
yeah.
huge amount about the crime.
Well, there's a brilliant documentary on Sky Documentaries at the minute, that I'm sure will go up on the internet at some stage. But it basically runs through. I think he's made some sort of appeal in recent years, and that's why they've gone into. Louis Theroux has actually directed it, or has had some involvement in it, so you can tell by that that it's really well written. But so this gun had a silencer on it, and the only reason the sister didn't get all the blame, even though the brother did a great job of portraying that his sister had gone mad and shot them all. Um, they found the silencer underneath the stairs, and the apparently when the silencer was attached to the shotgun was too far down the sister's body for her to have been able to shoot herself. But add to that the fact that her blood was found inside the silencer, and I'm not a crime scene analyst, but like even I don't understand how these people in this Facebook group that are pro Jeremy Bamber, and the fact that he didn't shoot them, can comprehend how his sister's blood from the wound is inside the silencer, and yet she still managed to shoot herself, and then the silencer ended up underneath the stair cupboard. Like, it baffles me. Human
Yeah,
beings.
I can't really. I know very little, so I'm not going to comment on that. I do know that people
No.
get very angry about it online, so I'll
Oh,
probably best that
really?
I'll probably best I don't have an opinion on it, so we don't alienate all five of our listeners.
Oh,
But
in that case, scrap all of that conversation.
no,
Just
no,
delete
no.
it.
I'll
Don't want to upset
I,
anyone.
we'll leave that in, and if either of our listeners are listening to that, then please don't take offence.
I think you've become a part-time comedian tonight.
I am a part-time comedian when I can say my words. So, so yeah, I'll put the. I'm sorry if we keep going off on a tangent tonight to those listening to us, but bear with us. We're getting there. So I'll put all of these items that I've just mentioned: the pictures of the black bag, the commando style knife with sheath, the cap, and a pistol or silencer, up on our social medias after I publish this episode later on tonight. And I said so, but I did send them on to you when I sent you the script, Rachel. So I think it's probably fair that these two things are linked, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I say, working's a really like sleepy little town kind of thing. So it would be very unusual. Like the police have targeted a car acting suspiciously, not a person. And then this like random but brutal killing on a doorstep in essentially just a couple of meters down from a road. It yeah, seems to me it's a pretty simple case. They're connected.
Yeah. So at the time this happened, they did conduct some investigations, but they couldn't determine anything more than what they found in the car. So they couldn't really follow it up. But after Karen's death, the police understandably took the incident quite seriously, with the style of the killing and also the fact of what they'd found 2 weeks previously that indicated it was undertaken by a professional. In fact, they ended up undertaking one of Surrey's largest scale murder investigations for this. It was called Operation Lilac, with over 3,000 lines of inquiry being undertaken and over 1,700 statements being recorded. Their lines of inquiry took them all over the country, including London, Essex, and Hertfordshire. Now, the police leading Operation Lilac quickly came to the conclusion, and they still believe this to this day, that the murder of Karen on her doorstep was a contract killing, but it was also a case of mistaken identity. But before we get on to why they think it was a case of mistaken identity, I don't think it's a huge leap to think that this was a contract killing. The killer being able to get hold of two guns easily, because remember, they lost one gun firstly in the car with silencers, disguising himself and potentially not knowing the area because they had a map. And so that would indicate also that they don't know Karen, because if you knew Karen, you knew where she lived. So for this, I agree with the police. What about you, Rach?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on your side here.
So I guess the question is, why did the police think it was a mistaken identity if the killer actually asked Karen to confirm her address prior to shooting her? He was in disguise as a pizza man. He could have just apologized and left to go to the right person to kill if it wasn't supposed to be that address, couldn't he?
Um, yeah, I just think do you know what confuses me though? When he gets her to confirm her address, not her name. Like, why he wouldn't say, "Oh, can you confirm the name on the order?" I mean, I've never had a pizza randomly delivered to the wrong address, so I didn't actually know it was normal to then say, "Oh, is this such and such address?" But yeah, I would imagine with every order there's a name given, and he just said, "What's your name?" But he probably just didn't give a shit as long as he got somebody killed, right?
Well, possibly, but if you're thinking about it, she would have said, "I didn't order a pizza," so he would have said, "Okay, sorry, what's your address?" And then she confirmed
Yeah,
the
because
address.
he doesn't care what her name is.
Yeah,
He's just been given the address, hasn't he? Yeah,
yeah.
I get you.
But so don't laugh at me. Um, Everything I'm about to say now is based on theory and educated guesses. Obviously, if the police had facts, they could make some arrests or at least get very close. But given they've publicly come out and said that, and then the subsequent actions they've taken, which I'll get onto, you've got to think it has to be highly likely that they're correct.
Mm.
So if you know the case, or if you don't, but I've looked it up afterwards and I either agree with what I'm about to say or have another theory, then please, again, why don't you reach out and discuss it with us on one of our social medias? We're always happy to chat. Now,
Yeah,
I
we love a
feel
good theory.
exactly, we do love a good theory. I do feel like I've built this up too much now, Rach. It's gonna be like at Christmas where you're dreaming of a new car or fancy holiday, and all you get is a Breville toasty maker instead.
Hey,
Um,
do you know what though, Andrew? A Breville is quite a nice brand, so I'm not going to say no to that.
yes, yes. Breville is the Rolls Royce of toasty makers.
Yeah,
But like you said, who doesn't love a nice toasty?
exactly.
That's why I'm
I
so
mean, I prefer
so.
a holiday or a nice car, but yeah,
Yeah,
Toasty comes a close third.
you could eat a toasty while driving to your holiday destination, and then have another toasty,
Could
and
do,
it's
could
just a
do.
win-win. But who was the intended target if it wasn't supposed to be Karen? Well, the prevailing theory is that it was Karen's sister, Alison Pontin. I know, who happened to have moved in with Karen, but was out that evening. So it could be a case
Oh,
of correct
fuming.
address, but wrong sister. Yeah, fuming is probably one way to put it. Yeah. So this
Because
is
the guy got paid.
yes. So this is why. So the why now comes into play, which is a lot more interesting and important. Let me introduce you to two brothers, Ruslan and Nazarbek Ustiev. Ruslan and Nazarbek had arrived in London 18 months before Karen was killed, and they had gone to London as they were envoys of President Dudayev with a task to get passports and money printed for the newly formed Chechen Republic of Ichkeria, which had only formed a couple of years earlier. Rach, I'll edit this out, but why can I pronounce Russian names but not English words? How
I
does
just
that work
thought,
out?
I just thought to myself, I can't believe you just smashed that whole paragraph.
Yeah,
And yet there are other things, like the word "but" was confusing you before.
yeah. I know it's
Well done,
to be
bravo.
honest, bravo. I'll pat myself on the back later. So, of the two brothers, Ruslan was a trusted advisor, possibly even the most trusted advisor of the president. In fact, he called himself the Prime Minister of the breakaway state, but the more accurate title would probably be Deputy Chairman of the ruling council. Now, his brother was more of a bodyguard type person. So, obviously, one was the brains and one was the brawn. So the brothers had also been tasked with the not so easy duty of securing a $250 million loan, negotiating the sale of the country's oil, and also buying 2,000 ground to air missiles. So, it's just your usual shopping list when you visit London. I'm not too sure what they'd find on Oxford Street, though.
Good point. Good point. Nice
So,
IKEA. A couple of Marks and
yes.
Spencers.
Imagine an IKEA ground to miss out. It'd take you forever to put together. You wouldn't want to be left with any bits either, would you, at the end? Well,
No.
so the people are going to hate this episode, Rachel. The brothers knew they needed help, so they looked for an interpreter and an all-round fixer. When trying to figure out how to find one, Ruslan remembered that he was once interviewed by a producer for the BBC World Service, who happened to be called Alison Pontin, who was Karen's sister. So you can probably see it coming together now. So Alison saw an opportunity for her husband. Her husband was called Ter Ognayesan, to get some employment. So she suggested him to the two brothers. Now, her husband was Armenian and was known for being a low-level criminal at times, but he was also known to have a job as a swimming pool attendant. So I don't think he was a criminal mastermind.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, it could be great.
Slowly plotting the downfall of the world whilst, making sure people are staying in the right swim lanes.
Exactly. So the three men got on well at the start, but they would eventually fall out. Why isn't known. Some would say it was over money. Others would say it was because he found out the missiles were to eventually end up in Azerbaijan and be used against his home country in their war with Armenia. Whatever the reason, it is not as important as to what happened as a result of them falling out. Ter Ognayesan informed the Armenian KGB, who sent two people to go and meet with the brothers to convince them not to carry out with the deal for the missiles. And that sounds quite reasonable, like KGB, please don't do this. They couldn't convince them, no. So the Armenian KGB hired a hitman, which sounds more like the KGB, doesn't it?
That escalated quickly.
Yes. And now the hitman's name was Ashot Detmandizan from LA, who was also Armenian, and he was sent to kill the two brothers. And as an aside, I think if you called Ashot, then you've already got a great name to be an assassin, don't you?
Do you know what? When I read this particular line, not only did I laugh out loud, but I also wanted to say this reminded me of the mega news reporting of Phil McCann, who was the BBC correspondent that was sent to cover the petrol shortages across the UK a couple of weeks ago.
You're going to have to fill me in. I have no idea what you're talking about. Phil
McCann.
Oh, yes. Oh, that took me a moment then. Is that his real name?
It was screenshotted and shared on social media. This guy's been waiting his whole life for this news story. It was awesome. Hilarious. But yeah, well done, Ashot. Brilliant.
So the two brothers ended up being killed in quite an horrific way. So probably no more laughing. But again, as always, unless it's vital to the story, I prefer not to include the graphic details. But if you do Google their names, good luck spelling them, but if you do Google their names, you'll find out how they were killed. In fact, I'll put a link in the show notes. And the two just to save you trying to Google the names. But the two people were arrested for the murders. Ter Ognayesan and one of the two Armenian KGB operatives. I can't pronounce his name, and I have tried. I'm not even going to try again, but I'm doing a disservice. But you can find it in the sources again if you want to give it a go yourself. Now, what seems like something out of a James Bond movie, several attempts were made during the trial to get snake venom to the two defendants so they could kill themselves, but at various stages it was discovered. In the end, Alison's husband, so Karen's brother-in-law, ended up getting 2 life sentences, and his co-defendant hung himself while awaiting trial. Now, at one stage, he's recorded, his co-defendant that is, as having said to the police during the interview, the KGB will not forgive anyone. That's like, wow, you'd rather kill yourself than this being something happening to you by the KGB. So obviously he believed that because he chose death rather than imprisonment. So this is why the police believe the hitman was hired to kill Alison, not Karen, as it was So this is why the police believed the hitman was hired to kill Alison, not Karen, and it was a case of mistaken identity. They believed this so much, actually, that very quickly afterwards, they moved Alison to the British equivalent of the Witness Protection Programme, where she has stayed ever since. Because she was moved into hiding, no one ever interviewed her, but I can't imagine the guilt she had to live with. Firstly, guilt by association that two men that died because of her husband, but they're much closer to home. Her innocent sister was killed because of her. Can you imagine that, Rach?
Yeah, well, and so that the first part of that is that her poor sister died, but the second part of that is that they still didn't get the right killing, so her life's at risk. So
Yeah.
she'll, even though she's in witness protection, she's always going to be looking over her shoulder, and that's absolutely no way to live, is it? Like, you'd be paranoid that someone's going to recognize a picture of you from school, or however that looks, an internet search, unless you have like plastic surgery,
Yeah,
and then oh yeah, it just doesn't even bear thinking about.
I know. So, detective. So in March of this year, 27 years later, the police launched a fresh appeal featuring a Crime on Crime Watch live, and also offering a £10,000 reward for information that would lead to an arrest for Karen's murder. So, if you do have any doubts about your brother, Rachel, you could buy yourself a new toasty maker with that. Uh, I'll just carry on. Detective Inspector Hicks of Surrey Police was quoted saying this at the time of the appeal. People out there know who killed Karen Reid, whether it's the individual who pulled the trigger or those who were assigned to arrange this contract killing. It's time for them to come forward. Karen was an innocent young woman who was loved by those who knew her, worked hard, and had no previous involvement in criminal activity. She worked in Addleston as a geophysicist and was enjoying a glass of wine with a friend when she was brutally murdered. We strongly believe that this murder was a case of mistaken identity and a contract killing which went wrong. Those who were out there and know what happened may feel more comfortable in coming forward with information due to certain loyalties and relationships breaking down over time. It's time for those people to do the right thing and help us. Now, to me, Rachel, this sounds like the clutching at straws, and I think this crime is going to stay unresolved. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when it's contract killing, the people that kill just treat it as their job. Like, so they're not going to go and talk to anyone about it. Like,
Okay.
you get stupid criminals over time that have been chatting in the pub about, some woman they murdered once upon a time or something like that. But you're never going to get a contract killer doing that. And the people that had the sister killed are probably embarrassed or frustrated that they didn't get that the killing went wrong. So they're not going to talk about it either. So I agree with
Exactly.
you.
And I think a couple of things. If you're a contract killer, you're probably going to get paid more than £10,000 to do it anyway. I'd imagine. I don't know what the going rate is, but it's probably more than that. And like, if it must be a pretty dangerous job. 27 years later, I'd be surprised if they're still alive.
Well, yeah, that too. Because especially if a killing goes wrong, or you get discovered or something, your neck's going to be on the line, isn't it? But I still firmly believe she should have just taken the pizza and closed the door on the guy. That's it.
Yeah,
What lesson have we learned today? Thanks to the pizza. See you later.
yes, indeed. Although, yes. Um, so, for one last time today, if it's safe for you to do so, I'd like you to relax. Close your eyes and picture the scene. It's a Saturday evening, and you're spending time catching up with a close friend when a door goes and you get able to answer it without a second thought. What's waiting for you on the other side? So, before I get into my wrap up line, I know we've laughed and joked, but obviously we're not laughing at the victim here. It's so sad what happened to Karen. It's just one of those days, I feel. So, how was that for you, Rach? Was there any final thoughts?
Do you know what I would say? I completely agree with you adding that comment there, because it sounds like we've been really disrespectful to the victim and her family today, and that's not the case at all. It and when I listen to other podcasts that do this, I'm like, yeah, it was funny, it was humorous, but at the end of the day, someone has died. So I completely just want to echo exactly what you've just said, and also say that that was a really interesting case, because ordinarily, when cases aren't solved, I don't really like hearing about them. But this one was interesting, and the way it unfolded with the backstory about the sister and the mistaken identity, I almost feel that you've ticked a box with it being a contract killing. You can kind of get over it. There's not some random murderer on the loose. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And yeah, no, we always have respect for the victims. Actually, one person I didn't mention in the story, I'll mention it now, was Karen's dad, Karen and Alison's dad. He was a prominent lecturer at university, I forget which one now, and he was quite well known in his field. And basically, he didn't go into the witness protection program, but he very quickly just dropped off the scene after what happened, because he lost two daughters. He lost one to death and one that had to go into hiding. That I believe in the British Witness Protection Program, they allow one visit a year with your family, which the police arrange. So imagine that you lost one daughter to death, and the only person, because the mother wasn't around anymore, the only person that you can console with, you can't, because they've whisked her off into hiding. So he is the ultimate victim here, aside from Karen herself, because he's lost his remaining family. It's just really sad.
So sad.
So, thank you everyone for listening, and good night and God bless.